Welcome to Chads by Christ. I'm Charlie.
I'm Deshaun.
This is a show about Catholic lads living Catholic lives. Speaking of lives, it's been a while since we've podcasted together. A couple of weeks. Flying solo, you and I.
Mm-hmm.
So how have you been? What have I missed?
Indeed. Yeah, not too much. Do you want live updates or podcast updates?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in terms of live updates, been back in the gym, which has been really good. Sort of built up a consistent routine. The running is still going as well. We got our run coming up on Sunday, which should be interesting.
Yeah. By the time this
Hopefully no one
episode
pulled up.
releases, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have done the run, hopefully, by the time this episode releases.
And we may or may not be alive to tell the tale. So if you don't see an episode next week, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Look. The middle option, right, is we lose our legs, but we don't need our legs to do a podcast, so I think we'll be okay.
That's true. We could podcast from the hospital.
Yes.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah, I guess that's the life updates. Oh. I also purchased a 2 kilo box of protein powder bottle. It's a workout in itself to deploy the protein powder. It's so big.
Deploy the protein.
Deploy, yeah, well, to bring it out of the pantry. It's pretty cumbersome. But yeah, it tastes good at least. Vanilla milkshake flavor.
Yeah.
So that's that's life. That protein is life.
Protein come in other flavors, or is it only chocolate and vanilla?
Uh,
Like, can you
I
get like
actually don't know. I've seen like pre-workout in a bunch of different. I don't take pre-workout, but like I know that comes in like a bunch of different flavors. But I haven't seen. Actually, no, yeah, it does come in different flavors like caramel and yeah, berry and all that kind of stuff.
okay?
But like I think
Right.
the stock standard is like vanilla and chocolate.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't know.
Yes.
I'm not a fit guy.
Neither am I. Neither am I. But you know, we can pretend.
You go to the gym and deploy protein powder, so you got more fitness points than I do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, let's keep going. So yeah, that's those live updates. Podcast update. Last week I did podcast. It was by myself. I talked about work. Talked about yeah, the meaning of work. I guess sort of like what the Christian perspective of work is. And yeah, just went through, I guess, like some practical advice on yeah, how to keep God at the center of what you're doing in your 9 to 5 or whatever it is that you do for work. That
Yeah.
was my last week. Yeah, what have you been up to? Tell me about you.
Me, what did I get up to? Just worked and then fit a couple of runs in, and was graciously given a break from the podcast last week because I was obviously in a state the week before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You did good holding the fort last week,
Thank you.
which means I'm going to get you to do it again.
Dang it. Nah, I should be alright.
Yeah. Anyway, apologies for all the disruptions, guys, with the episodes being solo casts and whatever. We were hoping to flow on straight from our last episode together about God's will into a episode about vocations, and that is going to happen now. But yeah, it got like delayed because life is a thing.
Yes. Also, we did want to. The reason that we delayed it was also so I attended a talk at Fortes and Fides in Caulfield.
Yes.
I think I mentioned that a couple of times. But yeah, the one of the parish priests there, well, assistant parish priest, Father Sean, is he assistant parish priest? Yeah, he's assistant parish priest. Yeah, he is, right? That is
I
the
don't
term.
know.
Yes, he is the one of the assistant parish priests, Father Sean Murphy. So he gave a fantastic talk on vocations, and sort of about like a bit of a contrast between what vocations sort of used to be like and what they are now. And then yeah, he sort of went into the different vocations, so marriage, religious life, and just sort of gave like a contrast. You know, sort of how do you know that you're called, that sort of thing. It was really really good talk.
Yeah,
Um,
I
I
didn't
wonder
attend, so sucks to be me.
yes, that's
I
right. Yeah,
couldn't
that's
attend.
nice.
Um, but yeah, so
Some detailed notes. I wonder if it's okay to share them on the podcast somehow.
I want to like share the notes in the show notes.
Yeah. Oh, like I don't know, PDF somehow. I mean, I'm sure Father Murphy wouldn't mind.
I mean, I don't see any
Uh,
like intellectual property issues with it if that's what you're concerned about. I'm thinking more
yeah,
like
yeah.
just logistics, like how do you upload a
Mm,
file
maybe I
share
can put like
onto Spotify link?
A Google Drive link.
Uh, yeah, we'll figure that out off air. It's all right.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I can probably share the notes. Because yeah, they were really good. It was a really good talk. And I'd like to think I summarized it pretty well. So yeah, we can share those afterwards.
but
Did you
anyway,
ever
we'll
read through the
go
notes,
on.
Charlie?
What was that?
Did you ever read through the notes?
Yeah, I skimmed through them and then
Yeah.
I read through them and then I didn't. That was like weeks ago, so I got to skim through them again and
Right.
get refreshed.
On the
Yeah, even if
fly.
we don't upload the notes, we'll be going through them today anyway, right?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
you can listen to them
Yeah.
with extra commentary. But yeah, so you're more familiar with the talk dish, so maybe you should get us started.
Okay,
Uh,
sure.
what is a vocation? Start there.
Sure. So basically, vocation comes from the Latin word vocare, which means to call. Yeah, Father Murphy began his talk he talked about what that used to mean. So back in the olden days, so to speak. Back in the olden days, vocations were fairly straightforward in terms of like marriage, for example. Like it would be pretty like if you were like most people would get married, and then if you're a husband, it was pretty typical for you to go out to work in the factory, in the field, um, like whatever and then do your day's work, come home. Meanwhile, the wife, the mother would be at home taking care of the kids, making sure the home duties were in order, like another full-time job in itself. And that sort of used to be the way it was. But he talked about how our current time is marked by a lot of disorder and woundedness among people, largely accumulated to things like social media and the internet. So, it's become a lot more difficult to sort of discern a vocation. So yeah, that was sort of like the intro, and then he went a little bit more in depth. So talks about how God calls each one of us to vocations. So we're all part of the universal vocation, which is the calling towards God. Um, and then we all have a particular vocation to ourselves as well. So, relatively, well, it's not unique in the sense that no one else has that vocation, but like, it's unique to you in the sense that, you know, um, like, I might be, sort of, my vocation might be towards like married life. Someone else's, like the guy next to me, might be, like a religious life. Sort of, yeah, like it's particular, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like just
Like,
because
it's not
other people are
you
doing one thing doesn't mean that's what you need to do. Is that what you're trying to
exactly,
say? Yeah.
exactly. Like, I guess if you're surrounded by a lot of people gravitating towards one particular thing, or like one vocation, it might be easy to think, "Oh, maybe that's what I should be doing as well," is what I was trying to get at.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You shouldn't be peer pressured into your
Yes.
vocation.
Do not be peer pressured into a vocation.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, so that was sort of the intro, and then he talked about how we need to accept ourselves as we are for the moment, but to always know that God has a plan for what is in store for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've spoken about like marriage and religious. We've defined religious life before. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Do we need to define it again?
We probably don't need to define it again.
Okay.
Although Father Murphy did go a bit more in depth into like the different types of religious life as well, which might be useful because I don't think we fully went into that last time.
No. Um. Yeah, we'll define. We'll get all our options and then we'll start talking about
Yeah,
discernment.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's only one type
Yeah,
of married life, conveniently enough.
yes, only one.
But yeah.
Um, yeah, the religious life notes are pretty straightforward if you want to go through those ones.
Yep. Let me get those.
So,
So
bottom.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So religious life. There's two major vocations for the religious life. Uh, according to these notes, it's priesthood, which is priests, and then there's religious life, more broadly speaking, which includes monks, brothers, nuns, consecrated lay people, and so on.
Mhm.
Uh, the key thing about all forms of religious life is the three main precepts or vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience.
Mhm.
Uh, so when you enter religious life, you take these three vows to live a poor, simple life. So you don't have like possessions really.
Mhm.
Um, chastity, celibacy is what that properly means, right? You
Yep.
don't enter into marriage. You don't have marital relations.
Yep.
Uh, the idea being that you are married to either the Lord or the church.
Yep.
And then obedience is obedience to the superior of whatever order you're enrolled. Is that the word?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, like whatever order you're a part of. So, like, the nuns have the mother superior, they have to obey
Yeah.
her. Uh,
Yep.
monks have. What's the leader of the monks?
Um,
It's not father superior.
abbot. The abbot is the head
Yes.
and chief governor of a monastic community.
Right, abbot, yeah. Abbot, and then for the nuns, it's the abbess. Yeah, yeah. That makes sense.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Well, yeah, like the female abbot is an abbess, and
Okay.
they're both the head of an abbey. I think
I see.
that's how the word works. Yeah.
I see. I see. Okay, makes
Um,
sense. Cool. Cool.
so yeah,
Um,
that's the three main
yeah.
that's the lifestyle of like poverty, chastity, and
There was
obedience.
one thing I should have mentioned. I think it might be good as we go through like the religious life notes.
Mm.
Just about the key part of every vocation, which is sacrifice.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
Like especially as you were like going through the vows, I was like, oh yes, should mention that.
Yes.
Yeah, Father maybe talked about sacrifice and how in the modern day it's difficult for many people, which is another reason why people are struggling to sort of discern vocations nowadays. And that
Yeah.
comes for all types of vocations, like whether it's married life or religious life. Yeah, like that's a common element.
Yep.
And then he quoted scripture, so from the Gospel of Luke, so where the Lord, Jesus, says, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother, and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple."
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Like the call to vocation is a part of the call to pick up our cross and follow the Lord, right? Hello, I lost you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you
Perfect
hear me?
explanation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't realize. Distracted.
Yeah. Oh no, it just yeah. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So as I was, yeah, to repeat, uh, yeah, the call to vocation is the call to pick up your cross and follow after the Lord, right? So any vocation will require sacrifice. Um, so like the idea of this one requires sacrifice and this one doesn't, like that's not how you should be deciding, right?
Mm.
Yeah, that you shouldn't be avoiding sacrifice, so to speak.
Yep.
Yeah, going back to religious life before we get into the nitty gritty of deciding. Uh, there's two different types of religious life, like within religious life. There's the contemplative life, where you spend most of your time in prayer and living a life of prayer and self-sacrifice. So these are like the cloistered nuns, or like the monks and the nuns that are like cloistered, or hermits, or
Yeah.
generally like not a part of society, but they live uh, lives of prayer and fasting and what have you.
Yeah. Like they generally won't like leave their convent or abbey or so on. Like they'll
Yeah,
sort of have like arrangements for like someone to bring like the necessities to them, I think.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and even like that is like very limited interaction. Like I think we went to like one in is it Malta?
I think it was. I think Portugal is
Might have
one
been
we went to
Portugal.
cloistered, the
Yeah,
Carmelite monastery.
the common. Yeah, that's the one where they
Um,
yeah, they have like a little window where they can like have the yeah, the groceries and whatnot like passed on to them.
yeah, it's like a rotating shelf thing. So like you open the door, put the
Yeah,
groceries in,
yeah.
close the door, and then the nuns like rotate the lazy Susan or whatever, and
Oh,
like
easy Susan.
that's kind of what it's like, right? Like I'm trying to remember it, but like the whole idea is like you don't interact with the
Yeah,
outside
yeah,
world, so like you just
yeah,
get the
yeah,
deliveries and like
yeah, yeah,
without having to actually like
yeah.
interact with
Exactly,
anyone.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's not out of like an antisocialness
Hmm.
more so than it is like,
A
um,
sacrifice.
yeah, like it's a sacrifice and it's a
Yep.
real like retreat. You know how like in the Gospels the Lord talks about going into the inner room and closing the door to pray.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's that like lived out to like the next level basically.
Mm, mm, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the contemplative life, and then you've got the active life, which is in the world. Um, and so like these monks and nuns are focused on like doing good works. So like Mother Teresa and her missionaries of charity are like an obvious example for that. Then
Mhm.
this also includes stuff like missionaries and uh, all that sort of thing. So like anyone who's like out in the world, like actively doing works of mercy. Um, but still, they live a life rooted in prayer and the sacraments as well. Yeah. Uh, time check. 20 minutes already.
Dang.
Uh, I don't want to. Maybe I'll gloss over the like. Yeah, I'll gloss over the priesthood. Maybe. Um, the priesthood is a form of religious life that is devoted to the administering of the sacraments of the church. Um, and so like that's the key one, right? Like it's sort of like a. If I wanted to give like an off the cuff definition, it's a form of active religious life,
Yeah.
but the activity is the sacraments. Um, because of its role as like the distributor of the sacraments, uh, and the nature of it being like the priesthood, the priest acts in the person of Christ the head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Christ being male means that like his actor has to be male as well.
Mm-hmm.
So priesthood is exclusive to males for that sort of theological reason and not because of sexism.
Yes, definitely not.
Uh, yeah, just thought I'd chuck that out there. Anyway, um,
Yes, women have an
glossing.
important role in the church too.
Yeah. Uh, glossing over all of that so we can get into vocations and discernment proper. Um, so like, how do you pick which one you want to do, Dash? Or is that even like a thing you should be doing?
Um, so it's yeah, so there's a few different things that Father Murphy had to say on this. So first of all, he said that undertaking if your choice is to undertake a vocation, so that's not a rejection of marriage. In fact, a good candidate into religious life is actually someone that would have led a good married life, as a spouse, like someone, yeah, that would have made a good husband or wife, father or mother. And you can see this sort of even as they take a vocation to religious life as well, because nuns, for example, they become spiritual mothers. They still develop maternal instincts to care and nurture for other people. And priests as well. Obviously, they become the spouse of the church, the bridegroom of Christ, and they become spiritual fathers to their congregations in a supernatural or extraordinary way. So yeah, I think that one's important to note because I actually didn't think about that before this talk, that it's not a rejection of marriage at all. And then yeah, I guess if you talk about the two different perspectives of actual discernment, so there is the personal inclination and the inclination of the church, which I found really interesting that he talked about. So basically, he talked about how vocations can't just form through personal desire. Like you can't be like, I want to be this, or I want to be that, and then that's it. There's the church ultimately designates us to a vocation, but only if there is a necessity. So she calls us and makes and sanctions the decision. What this means is that even if someone wants to try and refuse a call to to a vocation, if it's willed by the church, they can actually be corrected by those of authority. So, for example, if a priest or another religious observes qualities in someone that are suited for a particular vocation, they might actually, tell you or direct you, either through spiritual direction or counsel, to, maybe seek or investigate a particular vocation.
Just a quick one, Dash.
Mm,
You mentioned that the church only designates a vocation in the case of necessity.
yep.
Does that mean that does that mean there are people who just don't have a vocation because it isn't necessary? Do you get what I mean?
I do, and I don't think so. Like everyone has a vocation. When we say necessity, it is where the church deems they are necessary, where the individual is necessary. You know what
Okay,
I mean?
right. So it's
Not like
so the church,
sorry, you go
uh,
on.
what does
So
the church
it's
tell me what I need to do?
well, I mean, the church will ultimately guide you to a degree if you
Right,
think about it. When
right.
I say
So I
the
gotta
church, I mean the broader church as well. You're not going to go to mass and then you're not going to hear in the homily, you need to do this.
yeah, do I gotta go to parish priest and be like, hey, what do I do with myself?
I mean, that is an option. Well, yeah,
Well,
like parish priests can observe qualities in you that might be suited towards a particular vocation.
okay. I guess
But yeah, I
on
guess what it
that,
means. Yeah,
on that, if my parish priest gives me the nudge, nudge, wink, wink, jokey joke, you should be a priest. What does that mean?
I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean they are right, but what it does mean is that it might be worth investigating. Like if they're observing qualities in you that might be suited to a vocation, it might be worth you, investigating, maybe speaking to, I don't know, like for a priest, if you want to speak to said priest or another priest, or if you want to, sort of go and speak to the rector at the seminary. I don't know. Like there are definitely options for that.
Okay.
And same thing with if you, sort of feel like if you're a woman called to being a nun, that there are definitely options for some seeking counsel on that vocation.
All right. And one last question. Sorry to derail you. Like,
Mm.
I know it's not entirely personal desire, but what happens if I don't want to pursue a certain vocation? Like, reading ahead a little bit, there's a note about how you need to have a desire or an attraction towards a
Yes,
vocation.
correct. Yes.
So,
Well, ultimately, we do
do you need
have.
both? Like, you and the church needs
You
to
do
be
need
in
both.
agreement.
Correct. Yes, you need yeah. I guess I'll go into the next topic because it does relate to that. So a desire or attraction towards the vocation is part of it, but you also need to be a part of the church, and the church needs to like guide you into that vocation. Like they need to go hand in hand.
Mm.
You can't have your vocation and be going against the church, like or what the church is calling you to. And that takes a bit of work and investigation. Like a solid prayer life is necessary, regardless of what your vocation is. But especially if you're looking towards religious life, that's a quality that's necessary. So fall into a habit of prayer, rosary, daily examination, conscience, mental prayer. Like these are things that you should be building upon if you feel that you're called to a vocation towards religious life.
I mean,
And ultimately, if you well, any vocation, but like
yeah, I
in
wanted to
particular.
say
Yeah, I think I
those are
mentioned
good
that
things
before.
for life in general.
Yeah, yeah, but like if you're going to be in the religious life, you're going like these are the things you're going to be doing for the majority of your day.
Yeah, yep.
Whereas like
You will be
you
praying.
and me, yeah, exactly. Like it's important for you and me as well, but like you know,
Like you need this for religious
you
life,
you, you absolutely need it. Yeah, exactly.
but we still also
Yeah.
need praying. Yeah,
Yes. 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 Solid prayer life is required for any vocation. But yeah, I guess ultimately through that prayer life, you would hope that eventually your vocation will be revealed to you by the Lord. So like I said before, that Father Memphian mentioned, it can take some time. Like you need to learn to be able to be comfortable in who you are at the moment and trust in the Lord's will and trust that it will be revealed to you, which can be difficult. And we'll talk a little bit about patience a little bit later on. It's not something that will happen overnight. I mean, it can, yeah, and it has happened to people, but generally, it's not something that happens overnight. Any other questions on that?
Uh, just a time check, maybe.
Might be around 30,
Okay.
but I think we should be able to very quickly go through the rest. Shouldn't take too
So
long.
we're up to the third point. Okay.
Yes.
Um.
Should I keep going?
Yeah. Keep going.
Yes. Yes, well, I'll try and summarize it a bit quicker. Aside from the prayer life, an ability to combat sin and avoid temptation as best as possible. Again, required for any vocation, but especially if you're considering religious life, you need to obey those virtues of poverty, chastity, and obedience. So, especially important in a vocation to religious life. And this one, another interesting one that I actually hadn't heard before, is that the individual discerning a vocation to religious life, well, ideally any vocation, but particularly religious life, is that they shouldn't be handling any particularly cumbersome emotional trauma. And that it's best to deal with this before permanently discerning your vocation.
This
The way
also
Father
applies to
Murphy
marriage.
yes, any
100%
vocation.
applies to marriage. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Fix up your insides.
yes.
That sounds bad. That's
Yeah, like it applies to any vocation, like I said before. But yeah, like particularly because when you are in a religious life, particularly if you're a priest, for example, like you will be giving counsel unto others, so you need to be in a good like emotional state yourself to be able to do that. Another thing Father Murphy talked about in this was emotional stability. So the ability to not so much not have emotion, but to be able to control them. It's very important as a priest, and any religious and any vocation again, but yeah, in particular, he mentioned as a priest and as a religious, it's important to help build that emotional stability. To not be a submarine is how he described it. So what that means is, sort of don't keep things inside of you buried deep below. They need to be dealt with out in the open. Otherwise, sort of they may surface in the future and cause you turmoil.
hmm
Yes, so I talked about emotional equilibrium or resting state, so the ability to control your emotions.
Yep.
Um, Very quickly summarize these points. So, very popular sort of opinion can be if I think I'm called to it, I must be. It's not necessarily true. Like we said before, personal attraction or desire is necessary, but you also need to have the qualities suited to the vocation as well as the the will of the church and the Lord. God does not call ideal beings to a vocation, so you don't need to be perfect to discern any vocation, as God calls all sinners towards a state of life, a particular state of life. And when we find our true vocation in life, it's like a seal. It'll leave an impression upon other people as well, and that's just good advice for life in general as well. Like we will leave an impression upon the people that we meet, um, and because we are instruments of God, and an instrument to His effect. So what that means is like our sinfulness or our holiness, can definitely leave impressions upon others. So yeah, that was just good advice in general from Father Murphy. Do I have time to go through this little section here about the book from about Saint Teresa of Lisieux?
Um. Not sure because I have a question.
Okay, go ahead. Go
uh.
ahead.
Sorry. So with the part about like if I think I must be, if I think I'm called to it, I must be.
Yeah.
Like again, it's sort of like, again, I sort of have this idea of like, I want to get married, so I should try for it.
Yep.
Um, is that wrong? Do I have the wrong idea of like, I
No,
want
I don't
this, so
think
I
that's
should
wrong
work
at all.
towards it?
And Father Murphy talked about that as well. Like he said, if you sort of feel particularly like that you're gravitating more towards another vocation, try it out. If it's towards marriage, start dating if you feel ready. If you've discerned properly, if we've got all those qualities that we talked about before, if you have all those things, like start dating, start discerning marriage. If you want to be religious, if you feel ready, enter the seminary, enter the priesthood, enter the stages for beginning religious life.
Okay. And then if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, then
If it doesn't work out, I mean that's okay. Like as long as you're not doing it illicitly, as in like you can't, become a priest and then leave the priesthood and get married. Like that's sort of breaking the vows that you took for the rest of your life, if that makes sense. But like until then, it's not.
oh yeah, when I
But
say like doesn't work out, I meant like you don't even get to the point of making the vows.
exactly, that's fine. Like. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like you discern, okay, this vocation isn't for me. I feel my calling is somewhere else. I personally don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay.
Like
And
better
what
to
if
be in a vocation that you're properly called to than sort of, this thing.
right.
Think, I better finish the job like what I've started. If you're not properly called to it.
Mm. But what if there's like you're trying to like enter the religious life and the church says no? I'm thinking of Saints Louis and Zélie Martin here. Like, what do?
Sorry.
You know how Saints Louis and Zélie Martin, before they got married, they wanted to be religious life. They wanted to enter the
Yep.
religious life, and it didn't work out for them.
Yep.
Uh, like there would have been a point where like they wanted to be religious,
Yep.
but they couldn't achieve it, but they still had the desire, right?
Yep.
How do you navigate that?
Again, you need to have both. Like you need to have qualities that are attributed to the religious life, and you need to like be going with the will of the church, not against it. And you need to have the personal desire. Like there's a few different things that you need to have.
Yep.
So, like for Saints Louis and Zélie, for example, we know that they were, devout Catholics, so they probably had qualities, and they had the desire, but maybe, well, we know that their will was elsewhere, that it wasn't too directed towards religious life, and that's why, that the church called them elsewhere towards marriage instead.
Right.
So, like, yeah, that's another thing, I guess. Like, if you're striving towards a particular vocation and you're sort of maybe hitting roadblock after roadblock, well, that's difficult as well. Because Father Home, if you did talk about this, that's not necessarily a sign that you shouldn't be in that vocation. Like, any vocation has its challenges. But I guess in like that's where it gets tricky. Like, you'll need to do a few different things. You'll need to like looking like deep within yourself to like see if you feel you're still doing the right thing. Obviously pray and ask the Lord, ask the saints for their intercession to let you know if you're doing the right thing, and seek counsel. So whatever vocation it is that you're doing or striving for, seek counsel from someone that's been in those shoes. So a married couple that your parish priest or a trusted priest. If you can get in touch with like a religious, if that's the way, like yeah, seek counsel.
Right. It sounds messy. And I don't mean that in a bad way, just like it's not so cut and dry as like popular Catholic content might make it out to seem.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Like
it's
it is a process,
it's
isn't it?
definitely a process. Yeah, yeah, I think that's something that I drew from this talk. It's definitely not you know one size fits all. Like everyone's journey will be different. Like I said before, there have been people that literally woke up one day and were like, "I need to be a priest," when the day before they weren't thinking that.
Mm.
And same with like religious life or like getting married. Yeah, it's sort of on God's timeline.
Yeah, yeah. Like I keep thinking about what we were speaking about a few weeks ago when we were talking about how we know it's God's will.
Mm-hmm.
Or that idea of like you kind of just have to like do something, see what happens,
Yep.
and then see the fruits.
Yep. Exactly.
Like it's that sort of process
Yeah.
as many times
Precisely.
as it takes.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said before, I personally don't see if there's anything wrong with like going towards a particular vocation and being like, okay, no, this isn't for me. My vocation is elsewhere.
Hmm. Yeah,
But you need
you're
to navigate that very carefully. Yeah.
yeah. I was just gonna say you're allowed to drop out of seminary.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely. But you need to be careful in how you approach it. Like for example, if you're dating someone and then you're like, okay, wait, I actually think my vocation is to the priesthood. Like you need to be charitable about that. Like you can't just be like, see ya.
Yeah.
You,
I don't want to
you
play
know,
with you anymore.
yeah, I'm done. See ya.
Yeah,
You
of
need to be
course.
charitable. You need to approach it very carefully. Same if you want to. I don't know.
You can't be
Like
selfish about it, can you? That's
no,
probably
you can't. Exactly.
the one
You need to
liner.
know your decisions impact others. Uh,
Yeah.
like will impact maybe the leader of wherever you are. So like you need to speak to the rector if you want to leave the seminary. Um, yeah. Um, your parents probably like your close friends and family. Like you want to make sure you're not upsetting them. Like if you just make like a big drastic decision, it's not that you
I
shouldn't because if you're called to, you need to do it regardless. Like we
was
were
gonna
talking
say,
about
like,
at the beginning of
yeah,
yeah, I'm not saying don't. I'm not saying don't care about what they think. I mean, I am, but also you need to have them like in the forefront of your mind as well.
yeah. But you also need to be prepared to abandon them so you can follow the Lord.
Well, yeah,
Well, eh, it's
well,
too
yeah,
grey.
but like it's great, it's great. I agree, but
Um,
like, how would you feel if you had to tell your parents tomorrow? I know what you want you to. You want me to do this, but I'm going to go do this. See ya. Like it's what you need to do ultimately, but
like, yeah, sometimes
it's
you got
not
to do
really as
that.
kind of well, yeah, but it's not as cut and dry as that. Is that like could you do that tomorrow?
No,
Yeah, it's
it
not as
depends on
cut and
what it
dry.
is.
Okay, fair enough. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, even like our close friends, like obviously they don't have jurisdiction over our lives, but they would sort of, be like they would have like opinions, maybe. It's sort of natural, right? Like we all sort of have tendency.
They should have our best interests at heart. Is that?
Well, yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to get at. Yeah, but yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. But you don't want to upset people, is what I'm trying to say. Like
Uh,
you need to do.
I mean, this is a personal thing of me. I don't like that line of thinking. Specifically upsetting people. But that's because I'm trying to not be a people pleaser. So don't
I
worry
get
about me.
it. I think I personally I'm not saying I'm in the opposite of you, but I think it's an important factor.
It is. It is.
Maybe less so friends, but more so immediate family. Like you
Yeah.
don't want to, well, because that can contribute to the emotional trauma that I was talking about before.
I
Like
yeah.
it could like say for example, you wanted to enter the priesthood, and your parents were like, "We want you to get married. Like this is what we thought your vocation was." And they are very strong about that. For example, what if they don't come to your ordination? Like
Uh,
you still need to do that. It's like God's will, but you need to be able to deal with that. So like you need to be ready.
yeah. That's a good way to say it. Like
So better
if
to
if it is
maybe
God's
try and
will that you
handle.
do that,
Yeah,
then
but
you
like
have to be
better
ready
you
for the
try and
consequences.
yeah. But what I'm saying is better to try and handle it earlier on in whatever way you can. You still need to do whatever like the will is, but like better to try and handle it before than after.
Yeah, that sounds like the submarine thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like I said, it's messy.
It
So
is. It's not cut and dry. It's not straightforward. It can be, but oftentimes it is.
don't demand it to be. It won't
Yeah,
work.
exactly. Exactly.
Um, yeah, I want to reassure our listeners who like are having a messy time with their vocation. Like that's normal.
Yes, it is normal. Like for the Murphy said at the very start, you need to learn to be comfortable as you are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's your vocation, not
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely don't do a vacation just because someone else is. That's not it.
Yes. Yes. I think we are short on time, and I think this
Yeah,
last
we're way
point
over.
that he mentioned was very important. Because, like we talked about before, marriage is a vocation, religious life is a vocation. What if I'm not discerning? What if I don't feel discerned to either? Like, what if I'm not what if I don't feel called to either of these vocations? Like, am I a failure if I'm leading a single life? Like, is that not a vocation? And the fact of the matter is, you're not a failure. That is also in itself a vocation. God can sanctify us outside of like those vocations that we mentioned previously. So single life, for
Mm.
example.
Yeah.
And yeah, the best way to do that is to lead a holy and devout life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look to the saints, right? Like plenty of
Yes.
saints, their defining characteristic isn't that they were monks and it isn't that they were married.
Yes.
Like a lot of them just lived holy lives. Some of them might have been married, some of them might have been religious, but
Yes.
like your vocation isn't like your meaning for existence. So
Yes.
despite the
I think.
mess, like don't take it too not seriously, but you don't need to put
Yes.
pressure on yourself.
Indeed.
Just
Um,
be the you that God wants you to be, and be what God made you to be. Become what you are, is the way I've heard that phrased. Yeah. Anything else?
no, I think we pretty much covered it all.
Oh. Yeah, we're really over, I think.
I mean,
That's
it's
alright.
fine. I don't think that's a big deal.
It's
It's an
not.
important topic. Like these topics, you can't rush. You can't
Yeah.
you can't skip details. You need to, yeah,
It's too messy to Cliff's note it.
exactly. Like topics like these, like I think it's not possible for us to like summarize in half an hour. Like you really need to discuss them properly.
Yeah. There's still a lot we haven't covered in here, isn't there? Like we skimmed over a bit.
I think we covered most of it. Maybe there was
I skipped a bit about Saint Therese of Lisieux, but that's an
nice.
example. I guess.
Yeah,
But we'll put
for
the
me.
we'll find a way to get the notes
We'll
up.
find a way
Yeah.
to yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yes.
we won't
Prayer
keep you
intentions?
too long, so we'll mosey on over to prayer intentions.
Yes.
So apparently today, October 7th, time of recording, is the anniversary of the attack on it, like the Hamas attack on,
I saw that. Yep.
like yeah, like the
Israel.
start, like one of the something, like one of
Mass
the
attack on Israel, I believe.
yeah, yeah, it's like one of the
and then, like,
starting inciting incidents in the whole Israel Palestine Middle East
yeah, I read like 1,200
conflict
Jews were
mess.
like murdered this time last year.
1,200. Oh,
Yeah, a lot. It was crazy.
yeah, and then that number of dead has increased since.
I think like I read that was the most like that was the largest like group killing of like Jews since World War II, like since Hitler. So it's yeah, it's very sad.
Dang.
Like you think you were
Um,
beyond those times.
well, no.
No,
If you've
no. The fact of the matter
you
is
never
no.
left.
True.
Um,
Anyway,
yeah, not to
yes,
just quick
yeah,
disclaimer, not to take sides or anything, just stating
yes,
what we've read. But yeah, so that just really hammers home like we got to pray for an end to the conflicts, both in
yeah,
the Middle East and throughout the world.
yeah,
Perseverance is key, so yeah, keep praying for that.
yeah.
And topical one, I will ask you all to pray for those of us who are having a messy time with their vocation. Whether that be those of us who are still trying to figure it out, or those of us who think they know what they want, or like know what they want, but like just haven't really like hit their stride and like getting it, so to speak, and they're starting to like doubt themselves. Yeah, pray for perseverance again. Yeah, pray for us to persevere. Yeah, you're up, Dash.
I think you just about covered it all.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you covered it all. Like, I guess we pray for all of us, like those who have discerned our vocations as well as those who are still searching, that we're able to, that we're able to hone those qualities that we need for whatever vocation it is. And regardless of what it is, that we're able to maintain things like a solid prayer life, which are required for all vocations, as we mentioned in the podcast. So things like the rosary, daily examination of conscience, mental prayer. Like these are things that you need for all vocations. So it's worth honing these regardless of where you think you're headed, because these are important things. for life in general, as Charlie said. So yeah, we pray for those searching and who have found the vocation and are acting upon it. Basically, everyone.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. If you guys liked what you heard, then like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, all the buttons, all the things. If you didn't, let us know. Leave a comment. Email us chadsbychrist@gmail.com. We got a Discord. You can jump on there and yell at us there. But yeah, either way, we hope to see you in the next one. Thanks so much for listening. God bless.
God bless, guys. See ya.